Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. Today I'll be your judge, jury, and your analyst, and I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. I definitely did. I just came back from Vegas, so I'm like, took a shower, and now I'm just chilling, but no, I got work to do, and I mean by Element Cup analysis for you for Season 8, for the actual rankings. Now, even though I was really, on the ball about basically, once you generate the list, it was pretty similar to the official rankings that you can see on this website. But after I analyzed the overalls, the leads, the switches, and the closers, there's actually some other interesting things that you can actually pull up from the custom rankings and comparing it to the regular rankings. But anyways, let's get started. So during this video, please consider contributing to ppoke.com. You can do so right here. And we're going to go to the rankings. So if you see here, we're going to go to rankings, and then we're going to go to Element Cup. Like I mentioned before, I was pretty on the, they were really similar. It seems to be that the moveset changes really didn't affect a lot of the rankings. Like, Poison being buffed really didn't affect the rankings much at all. So, if you were hoping that Poison Jab would be really good, there might be a little bit of justification. But like I said, after I analyze everything outside of that, I'll show you on the end section. So if you want to skip there and you're like, alright, you know what, I think I have a pretty good glimpse of the meta already. What is King of Charmanders talking about? You can skip over there. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, so here's the overall rankings. This is what you can generate if you use the custom rankings. This is basically takes consideration all of the charge moves, etc. So it kind of when this list comes out, it's just basically overall who's the best at in sense of mostly the one shield scenario. Because if you look at the overall rankings, what you'll see over here of what's beaten is actually taken off of the one shield analysis. So Ducklet has a 570 rating against Cottony. As you see, that's the one shield. So the overall rankings really take the one shield into consideration. So overall, it gives you a good glimpse of what you should look at or try to invest in for this cup. But if you watch my early Element Cup meta-analysis, you know that Ducklet's good. The Mighty Duck, the Mighty Duck isn't as ugly as we thought, and it's going to end your life and shoot, and it's gonna be really good in this cup. But for other reasons, it's gonna be good, but it's also, there's a lot of things that can kill it. Well, not a lot, but there's one thing in this list that will kill it really hard. Other than that, someone on my comments mentioned Cottony with Charm being number 2, which is really, which I kind of expected to, when it pulled out the Razor Leaf rankings, I was like, okay, I was like, there should be a Charmer in here, and I was like, yep, Cottony with Charm actually is at number 2. So, Cottony at number 2 is really strong because 2-shield Charm strats, right? Also, the thing about Cottony is that Cottony can actually run through Chikorita, and it can run through a lot of things, even though it resists it, as you see in Slugma, etc. It can kind of run through, it can run through the fire types in the 2-shield. The keyword is can. But you're gonna have to look really hard because some of them, like Volt, I think it doesn't run through Vulpix really hard, just because Vulpix is able to pressure the unholy heck out of you. So just keep in mind, 2-shield Charm strat is really strong, but when you have fire running around as kind of one of the meta archetypes, then it's not that great. So, but Cottony's still really good. So if you don't want to invest too much into this, like I said, I will be making a video on budget, so that you don't, if you invested in Cottony for a little cup before, you don't have to use it again. So, you know what I mean? It's like spending money. You know, like Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs really likes spending money. And then when he loses money, he gets pissed off. Or he cries. You don't want to lose money, so... Not a lot of people have a lot of... Mr. Krabs has, a vault underneath his, I mean, if you ever watch that episode where he has a bunch of money underneath his bed, that's basically King of Charmanders. I got millions of dust to spare, but I know you guys don't, so... I'll figure something out eventually, just not right now. So, eventually, I'll get one in there. Anyways, as you see here, Chikorita is also really, really good. So Chikorita is a beast. Chikorita, the reason, if you watched my last video, Chikorita was overall one of the best ones, just because of Vine with Body Slam spam. Vine with Body Slam spam is very powerful, as you see here. It's able to, Chikorita is able to just run through a lot of things, but the problem with Chikorita and with Cottony is basically the fire archetype. Growlithe and Vulpix are really good, so anything that has Ember slash Weather Ball or can match you, it can actually take out Chikorita, so... I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research. I still think Chikorita is still really freaking good. So if you only have Chikorita to use for this cup, it's still really good. Like, don't roll it out yet. It can still be really, really good. And then the one thing that I really looked at was Chinchou. Like, if you watch my last video, Chinchou, I was like, Chinchou might be really good because it destroys Ducklet and it has a lot of pressure ability and has Bubble Beam. And lo and behold, I was right. So, Chinchou is really good for two reasons. It will destroy most of the water as well as the fire archetype. So Chinchou is kind of, ironically, even though it's like technically meta, is kind of like the anti-meta to being able to cover two different, both archetypes, because it is only, Element Cup does only allow fire, water, and grass. So one Pokemon being able to beat both the fire archetype and the grass archetype is, the water archetype itself, so it's a mirror, it's really freaking good. But the thing is, the reason why grass is needed is because of Chinchou. So grass beats Chinchou pretty hard, as you see here. So you could probably, if you've already done some analysis, you're probably like, man, this meta is gonna be kind of condensed. It kind of is. So the Element Cup overall is likely going to be a very condensed meta. Like, I wouldn't say super RPS. There are probably ways to play around it, but I'm gonna have to put a little more work to figure out, because it looks like there is a way you could do like a shield breaker strat and sack your lead, and then just run over the back throw with shield advantage. But like I said, I'm gonna have to do a little more research to see which one's viable. Because in a small cup like this where everything does so much fast damage, you don't have a lot of time to think when your Pokemon are dying really quickly. So yeah, I'll try to make it like a little simplistic. I mean, we'll see, but I can figure something out. On first glimpse, I can figure something out, but it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna take me a little bit. I just got back from vacation, so pretty sure all of us did, so give me a bit, and then I should be able to give you something in my top teams, or like, yeah, mostly in the top teams, I should be able to give you something like a shield breaker strat, or something of that sort. But as you see here, Growlithe Shadow is also one. I'm only going to analyze the top 5 because everybody else is pretty similar, as you see here. And then I'll go through a little bit of dark horses at like the end, but as you see here, Growlithe Shadow is actually really good just because of Ember Body Slam. Vulpix can be used in its place, but the reason why Body Slam is good is because Weather Ball is resisted by Ducklet, etc. With Shadow Growlithe, you can actually beat Chinchou, etc. And you can actually beat Ducklet in the one shield. So Growlithe Shadow is actually really good, but again, the only justifiable reason why is just because of like Ember Body Slam, even though Vulpix has it already. But there's like, it's barely, like, as you see here, you can pretty much use Growlithe or Vulpix, but there is like a little bit of like minuscule things of what it won't be and what like the reason why you see Vulpix losing in the one shield is because I think it like barely loses or something like that. That's why Growlithe is able to win. Or I think Growlithe wins CMP or something like that. Like I said, I'll have to take a look more into it. But the big 5, as you see here, or the big 7, if you add, well, don't mind Shadow. Shadow Oddish is basically your Razor Leafer of this cup. Not really worth to run Shadow Oddish, in my opinion, because its only purpose is to delete the water types. Which, if you leave Shadow Oddish with 2 shields, maybe, but it's not likely you're going to come out of the back with 2 shields unless you're just, like, dominating in RPS, in a sense. Or if you manage energy really well and you just broke shields. But like I said, your 1 through 7 is likely going to be pretty much your meta. And then the rest are just kind of like clickbait. Seal can also work, but the reason why Seal doesn't work is because... So, some people did ask me about, like, hey, Seal. But because Seal actually loses pretty hard against Ducklet, because Ducklet is able to... As you see here, Ducklet does give you a hard time. And Ishar does do neutral damage, but as you see here, against Ducklet, you can win the 2s and the 0s, but the 1 shield's a little rough. So, unless you put Ducklet in either one of these scenarios, it's kind of like, it's going to be a little rough. Along with that, if you look at what Seal loses against, Seal will get deleted by Shadow Oddish, Chikorita. It can be Cottony, but if you look over here, it depends which Cottony you're facing, because it can, well, actually it does win, but if you're facing the Charm one, that's great. If it's the Razor Leaf one, yeah. So, again, it really depends which one you're facing. So, if you face a Cottony against Seal, you will lose most of every scenario, unless it's the Charmer. So, just keep that in mind. So, some people did ask me about Seal, and overall glimpse, it depends which Cottonee you're facing at, because Seal's basically like Turtwig. Its only purpose is to really beat the entirety of fire typings, so that's basically what it is. Like I said, I'm not saying it can't be good, but like I said, dies to a lot of good things, and you only beat Cottonee if Cottonee's not carrying Razor Leaf. Alright, so I'm going to go through the leads, closers, and switches a little more. First, we're going to start with the leads. So the first thing I want to do before you look at this is that when you go into the leads, what you see here reflects off of the one shield. As you see, I'm going to look at Chikorita versus Ducklet. You pull up the data, this is what happens. So you actually, what we reflect overall in the leads, you see the one shield scenario. That's why you see the one shield connecting into what you see right here. But because of that, it's kind of weird too. That's why when you do team builder, it's a little weird because you don't actually see the true two shield scenario. So again, that's what makes it kind of weird when it comes overall. These are still really good leads in my opinion, but again, if you're gonna, when you start a battle, it's two shields. So again, what you see here is based off the one shield scenario if you were to lead into it. But we'll go more into that later. This is why you have to go into team builder, you have to matrix your lead and see your lead versus everything else. That's kind of like the secret of like figuring stuff out the long way. But as you see here, these are still really good leads. If you watched my earlier meta-analysis, the reason I'm going to go through these faster is because they're very similar. We already knew, if you watched the last one, Chikorita and Ducklet were going to be really good leads. As you see here, Ducklet and Chikorita just put a lot of pressure on both two typings. So as you see, Chikorita here is able to beat a lot of grass typings itself as because of Body Slam Spam, and it's able to beat Ducklet and Chinchou. So does beat a lot of dual typings, which is why Chikorita and Ducklet are both super powerful. Ducklet being the most powerful overall, in my opinion, and factually, just because as you see here, it's able to take on so many different Pokemon. It's able to take down Vulpix, Cottonee, etc. And like I mentioned before, the poison meta being buffed didn't really make too much of a difference, but again, I'll mention that later. Growlithe is a pretty good lead though. As you see here, Growlithe as a lead is able to be able, it does all, so here's why it makes it a little tricky. I'm not going to say it beats, if you look at Ducklet versus Shadow Growlithe, here's what happens. You lose the two shield. So again, might not be a great lead to line up against Ducklet just because it doesn't reflect the true shield scenario. You do beat Cottonee, you do beat Vulpix, you do beat all the other grass types. However, when you put Growlithe versus, like I mentioned, Ducklet, you do lose. In Growlithe against Chinchou, you get, well, Chinchou does beat it convincingly, but like I mentioned before, it could be a little harder than you think it will. Not to say Growlithe still isn't a good one, so Vulpix, if you used Vulpix for the Little Cup, it can still be really good, just because these two are really similar. If you look at Growlithe versus Vulpix, like I mentioned before, it's pretty much interchangeable. I think Growlithe wins CMP or something like that. That's why statistically it's a little better. Connie's also a great lead. Charm 2 shield strat's also very powerful. If Connie doesn't see a Charmer, or doesn't see a Fire type, or like an Ice type attacker like with Seal, Connie will essentially run through most of the meta in the 2 shield. So if you have a Connie and you just don't want to spend any Stardust, here you go. Charm 2 shield strat still works for the most part, outside of seeing a Fire type or getting hit by like Ice type attacks. So Cottonee is not a bad option. As you see here, Charm 2 shield, very, very, very powerful. Razor Leaf Cottonee can flip some matchups like you saw in the overhead view. So if you like Razor Leaf, it's not a bad idea either. Chinchou is also a really powerful mon. If you watch my last analysis, I was like, man, Chinchou could be really freaking good. And by my prediction, yes, it's really freaking good. Chinchou is able to cover both water and fire archetypes. It can take out the grass archetype, as you see here in the closer, because grass does pretty much, any grass type will essentially wall Chinchou, as you see here. But other than that, Chinchou is still really good. You can also do debuff plays with Chinchou, so you can debuff your opponent before you dip, because Chinchou will likely, unless it's getting hit by a Razor Leaf, it can survive a lot of things to where you can debuff your opponent and switch out. So there's a lot of, you can finesse the play, a little bit of plays with Chinchou. But these are your leads. As you see, a little condensed. If you ran the one against the custom, Slowpoke was really good in the 2 shield. I still think 2 shield Confusion Roosers are really good. As you see here, Slowpoke is still able to beat Ducklet in the 2, like it's still able to beat Ducklet. If you run the battle against it, as you see here, Slowpoke can still beat Ducklet in the 2 shield scenario. So, like I mentioned before, it's not completely like a bad idea to run a Slowpoke with 2 shields. And Tentacruel will go, I'll go over Tentacruel and the Poison Sting meta later. But as you see, these 1 through 12, like I mentioned, are really good. But again, these are still really, really powerful leads. Essentially, your lead, what your lead's going to do is either tear through their lead, or you're going to break your opponent's shield or sack your lead entirely. So there's a lot of things you can do for the Element Cup as far as leads go. Alright, as far as safe switches go, Ducklett is still the king or queen of safe switches, as you see here. It's going to destroy everything you know and love, and annihilate, like, yeah, you don't necessarily need one in a sense, but you can literally make a team of kill Ducklett, but other than that, like, Ducklett is still really freaking good. As you see, again, like I mentioned before, being able to cover 2 typings. Also, Brave Bird does hit like a mother if you are able to hit it through shields, with your biggest hard counter being Chin Chow. So you can kind of RPS your opponent, or actually this is going to be a little bit, not super RPS, but it can be an RPS meta. As you see here, what can happen is that you can use a strat where you draw out your opponent's Ducklett and then just farm it down with Chin Chow. Ducklett has such a bad matchup against Chin Chow, he'll die in most scenarios. Also, Chin Chow does wall Ducklett because Wing Attack, Brave Bird, and Aerial Ace are resisted by Chin Chow. So, it's, yeah, so there's this. I'm not going to give away my strategies yet because that's more content. But anyway, and it's not like the Cup's coming out next week anyways. But as you see here, Ducklett is still very powerful as a safe switch. And there's ways you can take advantage of it being so popular. But overall, if your opponent doesn't have a counter to Ducklett, Ducklett will still tear through so much of the meta. And like I said, Burb through shields or Burb down shields is really freaking strong. Chikorita is still very powerful for its pressure presence. As you see here, its body slam is able to run through the water meta as a safe switch. I personally wouldn't want Chikorita as a safe switch, just because if there is Ducklets running around, Ducklett will destroy Chikorita. Well, yeah, Ducklett will give you a hard time in this meta, so I would just be careful when it comes to Chikorita. Tentacruel, however, might be an interesting safe switch. So this is where the Poison's type meta, or the Poison Sting being buffed, or Poison meta being buffed, actually matters. So if you didn't see the chart for the buffs and debuffs, Poison Sting actually is like a Psycho Cut clone now. So 2 turn 9 energy moves are extremely OP, and Tentacruel has one now. As you see with Tentacruel's ability, it's very interesting because it is able to, it beats the Grass archetype, but it's also able to give Vulpix and the Fire type archetype a hard time because of Bubble Beam. Poison Sting and Bubble Beam will fire off really, really fast, and it'll be really, really annoying. So, again, you can still see the Fire type archetype here, but Tentacruel is able to do so well against that. And against things like Cottony, because if Cottony is not carrying Razor Leaf, Tentacruel does resist Charm. So, Tentacruel is kind of... And it's kind of like even though it's like number 3 as a safe switch, it's like very anti-meta-ish. Losing to, of course, Ducklett and Chin Chow. So you can kind of see how, remember I mentioned this can be a little RPS-y. Yeah, it kind of can, but this is where the Poison type debuff, or the Poison type buff really actually matter. As far as, not to say Tentacle isn't a bad safe switch, if you do annihilate Ducklett, you can send Tentacruel in to target Cottony, and you can use it to target Vulpix. So, not bad. As other safe switches go, I would say these top 3 are the best. Some people ask me about Laleep. Here's Laleep. Laleep is very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it because you only will truly beat the water archetype. So it's only there for one specific purpose. Unless you boost. Again, unless you boost. Not only that, Bullet Seed is legacy. You can't get it anymore because it was a glitch. If you want to flex your Laleep and use it for content, not a bad idea. But as far as like if you want to climb, I wouldn't really recommend it just because, like I said, Laleep is only there for one specific purpose. It can even lose the Vulpix in the one shield. So just putting that out there. But as far as like switches go, I would say like top 1 through 5. So, well, minus Fungus. Fungus is only really good because it has Body Slam. And Fungus can actually beat Ducklett and Chin Cottony. So Fungus is interesting, but not super reliable. If you safe switch, you'll have 2 shields. And guess what? If Ducklett has 2 shields, it does beat Cottony. Fungus will lose to Ducklett in the 2 shield scenario. So that's why it's very iffy to run it as a switch. And like I mentioned, but as a switch, Ducklet is still good, Chicory is still good, Tentacle, Cottony, all really solid picks as far as safe switches goes. Chinchou is also, I wouldn't say Chinchou is a great safe switch, but like I said, you can use Chinchou as kind of like a trap, and you'll see more in the closer just how like that strat really does affect it. But this is where, again, this is where poison type really does matter, is switches. If you do have a -500 Tentacruel lying around, it can be good as a safe switch. Alright, last but not least, we have the closing scenario. And remember when I told you guys Burb is the word? You will get hit by a Suburban, but it will not be by a Surfetch. It will be by a Ducklet. Ducklet with Burb is incredibly powerful. Outside of shooting it onto a Chinchou, you will one-shot a lot of things at certain ranges, at actually very high ranges, which is why Ducklet ranks number 2 as a closer. Chinchou also closes out as the number 1. Remember I was talking about, yeah, Chinchou is a monster because of Spark, Thunderbolt, etc. Yup. Chinchou is insanely powerful, being able to defeat a lot of combinations with Thunderbolt and Bubble Beam. Grass does give you a hard time, as you see here. However, you can, like, just with Thunderbolt and Bubble Beam plays, like, Chinchou is the most powerful closer just because of its ability to essentially cover its own type as well as the fire typing as well. That's why it's so powerful as a closer. I wish it wasn't as good as I thought it was. Well, actually, I'm glad it's as good as I thought it was because I actually have one. If you do have a sub 500 Chinchou running around, this thing's a beast. And you could do a lot of strategies with Chinchou that you wouldn't be able to do with a lot of other mons, just because of Spark and Bubble Beam is such a fantastic combination. Again, Ducklet also ranks at number 2. And you have Growlithe. Growlithe is also a powerful closer because of its ability to fry the... Well, basically its job is to essentially just fry the grass typings. And it is able to beat, as you see here, the opposite of fire type. So it's able to beat Vulpix Shadow. It does lose against the original Vulpix, so it's kind of weird to have Growlithe around. If you don't have one built or you're not trying to use it for content, yes, Growlithe is good on paper, but I don't recommend it. Snover is also a surprise just because... Here's the thing, if Snover actually had Weather Ball, it would actually be an incredibly... Like, if it did have Ice Weather Ball, it'd be stupid powerful. But unfortunately, it does not have Ice Weather Ball, so that's why. However, Snover does... The reason why Snover ranks so high is because it beats a lot of the top meta. It's also able to defeat Cottony, as you see here, so Cottony is able to give it a hard time. Also, Growlithe, and then you have Bulbasaur, but basically just anything that nukes everything. Bulbasaur is a power nuker, being able to wipe out its own type, as well as power whip the water types to death. It still can't beat Ducklet in the closer, which is hilarious, but again, most of what you'll be looking at is top 5 right here. There's a whole bunch of other random stuff in the closer, but I would say, like, you don't really have to worry about the closing scenario too much, because you're going to see a lot of 1 through, I would say, 3. And along with that, if you have no shields, 1, you're either going to blast your opponent with whatever energy you have left, or 2, you're going to charm it / razor leaf it to death. So closing scenario, not too much. Alright, so here's my little secret. Okay, so remember I was talking about the 2 shield for the Element Cup when it comes to lead and like the whole like, oh, it kind of runs it against the 1 shield, etc. Here's what I wanted to show you. So what I do for these things are, like, when I read metas, I will run this, and then I'm going to run a custom with 2 shields. The reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to show you. So here's the 2 shield for the Element Cup. When you use it, when you run the leads against the 1 shield scenario, or how they're ordered out. This is what happens when you run it with the 2 shield. So this is what happens. As you see here, you got Voodoo, you got freaking Cottony. This is kind of like the true 2 shield scenario. So as you see here, if you actually kind of put everything together, Tentacle is actually the most powerful lead overall. For the sheer virtue that Tentacle in the 2 shield is able to beat Chikorita, Ducklet, and Growlithe. The reason why Chikorita doesn't do super well against Tentacruel, as you see here, it's because Tentacruel is also a poison type. So Grass will do neutral damage. Meanwhile, you have Poison Sting. So Poison Sting does tear through the grass typings. And like I said here, you are able to beat Ducklet and Vulpix with Tentacruel in the 2 shield scenario. So in the truer sense, Tentacle is actually the most powerful lead in the 2 shield when put against everything in the 2 shield scenario, because this is the true 2 shield. What makes it interesting is that if you saw how Slowpoke is actually very, very powerful, because Slowpoke is actually able to beat Tentacool. It's also able to beat Ducklet in the 2-shield, as you see here. If you run Slowpoke against Ducklet, you are actually able to pop both of its shields. As you see here, you're able to pop both of its shields, and then you could just shield all the bubble beams. And then what you can do here is that the Chinchou that's left with... The Chinchou will be left with almost no energy. Well, practically no energy. And then you can farm Chinchou, and then just wipe out your opponent's back row with like a Ducklet or your own Chinchou in the back. So, again, it is a very, very... There's a lot of strategies you can do to make this a non-RPS meta, but as you see here, as far as true 2 shields go, again, this is what I will do. Again, I run a 2 shield versus that. So it looks like the poison buff did matter. Did matter in the sense that you do have a Tentacruel that's sub 500. Tentacruel hasn't been out forever. I don't remember the last time we've had a Tentacool event, and I am actually... I'm actually looking I hoard a lot of stuff just because I've been playing the game for a while, so I actually hoard it. And I actually do have a Tentacool, so like I said, a Tentacool. So there's been a lot of instances where like, hey, like, can I like use this? But again, Tentacool is very, if you're looking for a poison, or if you really like poison Pokemon, again, Tentacool is actually an incredibly powerful in the 2 shields. Again, it beats Ducklet it truly beats Ducklet in 2 shields. It is also able to defeat Vulpix, etc. So it's very, very strong. Very, very strong. So it can keep, and just because you're able to debuff it to Oblivion with Bubble Beam, as you see here. So if you run Ducklet against Tentacool, Tentacool loses most scenario. Tentacool will win the 2 shield scenario. As you see here, you can Bubble Beam, bubble. You can just debuff it to death, and you could just wrap it to death. If Ducklet doesn't shield your Bubble Beams, or if it doesn't shield one, as you see here, it still dies pretty hard. So you could still, you're still gonna win. You're still gonna win. You'll pop both. You'll force both of their shields. You can even take one Air Release if you want to, and poof, you can expend one shield. So Tentacool is incredibly powerful. Why I'm giving you the secret, I do not know. I should probably be keeping this to myself. But anyways, you know what? That's what I usually like. Again, this is like my little secret when it comes to analyzing metas. You run the real one, you look at this comparison, and then run it against this comparison. And as you see, Tentacruel will beat all 3 of these. Actually, Tentacruel will beat 1, 2, 3, so it beats the top 3, minus Chinchou. But again, even if you do encounter Chinchou, there's things you can do against Chinchou. Like you can force Chinchou into a bad spot. So again, Poison did really take a little bit of a buff, and it really did matter. But Tentacle's the only one. Other than that, any other poison typing that you look up here, they're severely underpowered. So, as you see, if you look over here, like, there's no... Other than Tentacle, there's really no other poison type that are... like, poison attacks that really were able to make it into the rankings for Element Cup. With the exception of Tentacle. So, Tentacle is my little secret. So... Again, this is stuff that this is stuff that hopefully does help you out, but again, this gives you a good look at how to really read these things. Again, when you see the leads in pvpoke.com, it does run against the 1 shield, so this isn't necessarily wrong. Statistically, this is correct. However, if you want a true scenario, then making the comparison, it's always worth it to run the comparison against the custom rank, as you see here. That way you can make comparisons, etc., and then it gives you a better glimpse. Plus, if you do like Tentacool and you do have one, it's actually, like I said, it's actually really, really good. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, this meta is going to be a little condensed, so especially with accessibility, because like I said, not a lot of you have like a Ducklet or a Tentacool kind of just floating around there. So those of you that have grind and hoard for things like I do, like I hoard so many things and just like save them up for later. Luckily, I have literally every Pokemon on this list just laying around just because, again, I hoard a whole bunch of things. It's nice to keep some things just in case it might be good for PvP one day, or if it has good PvP IVs so that you can power them up for later. But I really hope this analysis does help you guys out. Again, I hope the comparison with the custom rankings and with the newer rankings does really make an impact. Also, I hope my little, like, the reason why basically my goal is to make everything simple for you guys. So hopefully it really goes into like in depth again with like the 2 shields and like the lead scenario and like custom leads, etc. So I hope it does help you guys out. I hope this does. If you guys have any questions, just put in the comments below and I will answer right away. Well, not right away. I just got back from Las Vegas, so I really do appreciate you guys. I appreciate all your support. Appreciate all your guys' likes. And speaking of likes and also subscribing, this seems to work really, really well. So if you guys just put your mouse, or if you look up to the bottom right, there's a little box that says subscribe. If you hover your mouse below it, above it, not below it, you can't do it below, but if you put it right on it, it pops the sub tab like right there, so you can easily subscribe. It's free and I really do appreciate it. I do have goals for my channel as far as subs go, and it's been blowing up a lot recently, so I really do appreciate you guys. Again, if you have any questions, just put in the comments, but if you would like and subscribe, please do so. And I really hope this analysis does help you out, and pretty much I do the homework for you guys, so you don't really have to like go into and worry too much. And again, hopefully either my analysis or the teams I give you really do help you guys out a lot, because that's my goal. I want to help you guys make Legend, but because Pokemon Go PvP can be somewhat complicated, I want to dumb it down a little bit. Because, you know, numbers suck, math sucks. I hate math, but, you know, I like it for PvP for some reason. So, and it gets me, and I'm really good at it. So, I've done things no one else has done, but, you know, I'm really good at it. But, yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, please like and subscribe. Hope you guys are having fun for Season 8. Look forward to the Element Cup teams going out there, because I'm trying to do a lot more research, because yes, this can be, at first glance, it does look really RPS-y, but there's a way to break it, and I'll find that way. But again, look out for the top teams video. It's coming soon for the Element Cup. I'll be making a budget one first, just in case, so ones that, in case you guys don't have X, Y, and Z, this one you should look at. So again, look out for the top teams and the budget. Again, I know this video is a little long, but hopefully you took something away from it and or learned something from it. So, again, please like and subscribe if you like to. Again, it's really easy. Little box to the right. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets. Hope you guys are having fun in Season 8. And I will see you guys on the next video.
Charmander!